What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along with James Grande once again, and with 11 games on the slate, it's time to dominate some DFS NBA. Jimmy Grant, how are you, bro?
Happy Monday, Fensty. I'm doing great, man. 11-game slate, always lots of news attached to that designation, but I'm ready to break it all down. News, notes, injuries, Vegas, you name it, we got it.
Yep, John and Pemba on the playbook, fantasyalarm.com. It's up, it's ready to go. Like I said, 11 games, a lot of different avenues to choose from, but let's go over injuries as we have more news rolling in, Grande. So you stay on the updated news. I'm going to go over the Christmas list here of all the other injuries that we know of. Right now, players that are out for this ginormous slate: Bradley Beal is out, Jaylen Brown is out, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is out, Victor Oladipo also out, Jarrett Allen is out, Bobby Portis, Kevin Love, Lou Dort all out. Kendrick Nunn is out. Serge Ibaka is still out. Dennis Smith Jr. is out. Tristan Thompson is out. Lonnie Walker's still out. Same with Patrick Beverley. Rajon Rondo is out. Landry Shamit's out. DeAndre Bembry also out. David Nwaba, JJ Redick, James Grande's favorite player, PJ Tucker, all out. Davis Bertans out. Eric Pascal, James's second favorite player, also out. Sure. Semi Ojeleye, he is out. And then we've got some questionables here. Stephen Curry, he should play. It's all the reports are it's looking like he is going to play and ready to make his return. Julius Randle, he's questionable with a thigh injury. Kobe White, this just came out questionable with some kind of neck injury. Christian Wood is questionable with an ankle. Kyle Lowry is questionable with a foot. Lonzo Ball, questionable with a hip. Larry Nance Jr., this just came out. He's apparently sick and is now questionable. Also noted that Jarrett Allen will not play. Reggie Bullock is questionable with an ankle injury. Doug McDermott as well. Hassan Whiteside dealing with a knee injury. He's questionable. Justice Winslow, he's always questionable. So what makes him different? Quad injury. And Avery Bradley dealing with that calf still. He is questionable. Grande, I miss anything? That was just half the league right there.
Yeah, I'm sure half the league to go as well, as we are now an hour and a half away from lock. So, yeah.
You seem nervous, Grande. It's okay, man. We're in this together, man. If the world ends, it's you and I on the street, bro. And Matt Sells producing the program as well. So it's just the three of us, even though three is a crowd. Let's start with high-priced point guards that we're looking at tonight because, James, come on, man. Come on. He's like the cover of every single piece of NBA content that has come out on fantasyalarm.com today. Why is that? This is a man that on DraftKings continues putting up 50s and 60s and dominates, and he has the Spurs to Aaron Fox under 10K on both sides, bro. I want to get a tattoo on that right across my chest.
That would probably be a mistake, and your wife would probably dump you, but that's for a different discussion. I like De'Aaron Fox. I like him quite a bit. Things have changed, though, Fancy, because, you know, we have to remain fluid when we're talking about NBA DFS and when injuries present themselves, a.k.a. Bradley Beal being ruled out. And as much as I want to pay for De'Aaron Fox, and you probably can get both of them in your lineup, I am doing whatever I can to get Russell Westbrook in my lineup tonight. And, you know, when there is a star player ruled out and another star player is on that team, especially a high-usage guy like Russell Westbrook, it's impossible to ignore. I mean, we are getting 60 fantasy points a game with Bradley Beal on the floor. I mean, it is going to be Russ options 1 through 5 tonight.
So
and then, you know, Rui Hachimura catches some spot-up jumpers from Westbrook, and that's all she wrote. I mean, we could be talking about a season-best performance out of Westbrook tonight, at least from a fantasy perspective. Indiana hasn't been the same team in quite some time, decimated with injuries, and they just haven't looked great. It's kind of why they were shopping guys like Brogdon and Sabonis at the deadline. But I think all roads lead back to Westbrook to me tonight, or for me tonight. Favorite play of the slate. Fox, definitely the next best spend up at point guard. No doubt about it. And I do think you can fit Westbrook and Fox in your lineups. But Fox, who was once probably right there as a 1B to Westbrook, is now a firm second best option because there's the lack of Bradley Beal there is in Washington.
So let's just say now we're looking for our second guard if we're playing on FanDuel because Westbrook has clinched the spot. So if we're looking for that second guard, you can look right on the other side of the matchup. You can look at Brogdon. You can also look at DeJounte Murray as well, because when the Kings are on the slate, you can look to attack him in many ways. So you can look on both sides of both of those juicy matchups right there, Grande. But if we want to go maybe one more for value, and this is someone I don't think I've recommended at all this year, but no Jaylen Brown. I mean, Kemba Walker against the Pelicans' lackluster backcourt defense. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing about Kemba, I'm with you. I really haven't suggested using him at all very often. And it's hard when you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum sucking up so much usage on that Boston Celtics team. But Kemba's getting it done, man. I mean, even when he's shooting poorly, I mean, 6 for 16 last game against Milwaukee, 37 fantasy points, Fancy, because he's providing the ancillary stats we need. I mean, he's had 4 more assists in 4 straight. He's had 2+ steals in 3 straight. And we don't necessarily recognize Kemba to be a good defender, but the steals are the steals. Like, they're there. If he's just get lucky into the steals, that doesn't matter. They're still ending up on his stat sheet. So Kemba's has really been good. I mean, we're talking about 5-6 straight games of 30 more fantasy points. I really like that floor, and I love the matchup. I mean, New Orleans doesn't defend anybody.
Right, but see, I like it better that there's no Jaylen Brown.
Of course.
That's the big thing for me, because here's the thing. If they were at full strength and you're telling me that Evan Fournier is going to be in the mix tonight as well, that's going to probably take me off of Kemba Walker out of fear that there were shots divided. But with no Jaylen Brown, all systems a go for Kemba Walker, even with Fournier being added to the mix.
Oh, no, I completely agree. I wasn't trying to exclude that part. You led with it, so I was just building off your initial point. Because I do agree, like, Fournier does present an interesting mix, and if they were all there, like, where are the shots being, like, divvied up from? I mean, I don't think Tatum. I think everyone assumes Jaylen and Tatum wouldn't be the two suffering. So the fact that Brown is out is definitely huge. Fournier is a good player. And I think he's definitely a great scoring threat off the bench for Boston, if that's what they're going to do, even if he starts, whatever. I don't think, at least tonight, he takes away from Kemba enough. Like, we saw it kind of with Denver last night, where Aaron Gordon was really good, but he didn't really take away from anybody. It was still Michael Porter. It was still Will Barton. It was still Murray and Jokic. So I think it's going to take a couple games for Fournier to, like, fill in that role where he was playing in Orlando, if he ever gets that role. So I don't think it affects Kemba directly tonight too much.
No, it doesn't. And again, Jaylen Brown is out, so there's no fear with going after Kemba Walker for once. Let's move on to the shooting guards here. When it goes to shooting guards, it's looking like we're paying up for that point guard spot. Can you say the same about the twos? Because where are you looking at? You got James Harden in that Minnesota matchup. It's also really good. But you've got Westbrook with his situation.
Right.
So we know where we're going. So at this point, how are we pivoting with these twos?
I mean, it's you're right. It's tough to – I think the ownership the draft forecaster prediction is going to – when we get the update, it's going to change a little bit. I suspect Harden's ownership to drop substantially and Westbrook's to rise because, not to give it away, but we currently have Westbrook under 10%. Prior to the Bradley Beal news. So obviously there will be an update. You can go Harden, obviously. Kyrie is back. That obviously muddies things up a little bit, but not enough to where, like, I'm not playing James Harden. He was putting up 60, 70 fantasy points with Kyrie Irving. So that's one thing of note. I think if we're pivoting off, like, Donovan Mitchell has been tremendous. Continue every single night. He has been tremendous. He keeps scoring.
Say my guy's name. Say his name.
So I know I like Karis LeVert, and I'm not saying I don't, because he's been better. The shot attempts have been there too, and looks like he's fitting in pretty well in Indiana. And honestly, it's Washington, right? It doesn't really get any better than this.
25th in the league, baby, at defending twos.
Yeah, and I love it. But, like, John made him the cover of his core play article today, and that's Fred VanVleet. 7,400 is cheaper than Karis LeVert on FanDuel. And I don't really get that, because now we know Norm Powell's gone, right? we know Kyle Lowry is questionable, just like he was yesterday, ruled out. Why is this guy not $8,000? I mean, he puts up 40 plus every night. He's going to start at point guard against a depleted Detroit team. This seems way too cheap. And I think LeVert is definitely an interesting tournament play, like a tournament pivot away, because his matchup is fantastic. VanVleet is the cash game play in that little grouping, because you're telling me that a guy that potentially could start at point guard with Lowry out, with no Norman Powell, has been putting up 40 plus fantasy points tonight with both of those guys active, is now 7,400 in an elite matchup. I'm not passing up that opportunity to play VanVleet. I even would probably go as far to say I'd rather pay 79 on DraftKings than the 7K for LeVert. Again, that's just not so much LeVert's fault as it is the spot and this everything around VanVleet right now, because it's VanVleet, Siakam, Anunoby, and then nothing really else, because they don't play Chris Boucher. So I just love Fred VanVleet's spot so much tonight. And especially like if Kyle Lowry gets ruled out, like there's not gonna be a lineup that I don't have Fred VanVleet in.
You have proven me wrong.
You're not wrong.
You have. No, look, man, that's a good thing, bro. I was very dead set on LeVert all day. Just hearing what you had to say, I'm pretty convinced now, bro. Good job.
I mean, again, I think LeVert is in a great spot. You can't deny anytime you're going up against Washington, and something that you brought up a lot, it's a pace-up spot. Automatically, like Washington is your opponent, you're in a pace-up spot. It's a good Vegas total. It's a close spread. Like, it's a great spot. It's just he has like these other pieces that he's still trying to mesh with while the offense runs through Domantas Sabonis. It's still running through Sabonis. It will continue to run through Sabonis. Whereas when Toronto doesn't have Lowry, I mean, even with Lowry, like the offense runs through VanVleet a lot, but without him, he's their starting point guard. He's still taking 20 shots a game. Like there's really nothing to dislike about VanVleet, and the price tag is the cherry on top. Under 8K is just too cheap. So you're not wrong. You're never wrong in DFS, right? Like you can.
I'm plenty wrong in DFS.
Well, yes, of course, but the process, right? There's processes that we go through, and your process is not wrong at all, right? It's not, because there's a lot of things that say Caris LeVert is a great play, and he is. Just Fred VanVleet for cheaper just feels kind of like a miss on FanDuel's part that they shouldn't have done. VanVleet should be in the 8Ks, knowing that Kyle Lowry might not play.
Yeah, and any defense Detroit was playing in the backcourt is now gone with DeLon Wright. So that's also something you got to take into consideration as well. So but this is a nice little back and forth here on LeVert versus VanVleet. The bottom line is, though, two pivots right there, especially VanVleet, if you don't want to go after Harden, but you want Westbrook, particularly on FanDuel. This is what we're doing. Meeting of the minds right here. Any other value twos before we got on to the threes? I don't remember the last time we spent this much time on shooting guards, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting debate, because I knew that you were Team LeVert, and I just love the spot that Fred VanVleet's in, both of them, but it was a good debate. Value, I love Grayson Allen. I love what Grayson Allen has done, and I love that no one else plays Grayson Allen, because he continues
does just enough, bro. He does just enough.
Yeah, and that's what you need from your value. Like, yes, you want some of your values to hit 7-8x, sure. But like if he's constantly under 5K and he's constantly getting you 6x return, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's really good for a guy who's in the mid fours. He plays 25 to 30 minutes a night and gets it done. Love Grayson Allen. And then NAW, even if Lonzo Ball plays, there's no JJ Redick, and he was seeing time then. There's no reason to think he's not going to continue to see time. Yes, Eric Bledsoe was great last game, and hoorah, way to go, Eric Bledsoe. But you have to think like where the Pelicans stand in the Western Conference. That's who's getting phased out. It's not Lonzo. It's not NAW. It's only a matter of time before Eric Bledsoe is starting to be the one getting phased out. And we kind of saw that when Lonzo and NAW were both healthy. So I think both of us agree NAW is in play, whether Lonzo plays or not.
Let's move on to the swingmen here, and let's go to these small forwards and talk about some of the high price, because this is where we're going to be going a little more when it goes to value, James. So how are you handling this position here? Because you've got Jimmy Butler going up against the Knicks. If he attacks them, he'll beat them. The Knicks have nothing up front to really stop him. And anything they do have up front is not 100% from a health standpoint. So the attacking is going to be fierce there. But if you don't want to go after Jimmy Butler, let's just say, what other directions are you looking?
I mean, RJ Barrett's definitely safe. He has been tremendous, and it's across the board. It's not just with the scoring. I mean, he shot extremely poor last game, and he still found a way to get us 40 fantasy points. Couple that with Julius Randle being questionable. I mean, we could be looking at RJ Barrett option 1 on the Knicks, 1 through 3 on the Knicks tonight. So I do like RJ Barrett quite a bit. I think he's fine for all formats. John has him listed as a GPP play, but look at the floor on RJ Barrett. We're not getting anything below 35 fantasy points right now. So I like RJ Barrett. I'm interested at Kevin Porter because I like Kevin Porter a lot. I don't know what Houston's doing. I don't think they know what they're doing, because I agree with them starting Kevin Porter at shooting guard, but they were like so gung-ho about bringing him up as the backup point guard, and that was what they were like, he is going to be the backup point guard to John Wall when we bring him up from the G League. And now he's starting. Daniel House is back. There's potentially Christian Wood back. So I would limit my exposure to tournaments, but I do think Kevin Porter makes for an interesting tournament play because we've seen the ceiling is there. That dude can score the basketball. Whatever his off the court issues were, they haven't really shown up in Houston, and I like that. I mean, obviously, we all like that. We all want to see Kevin Porter just playing basketball. It's been good, and I like it in tournaments. And then Kendrick Williams, I think, is very interesting because the Thunder are missing a lot of guys, dude. You mentioned at the top, SGA, Lou Dort. I mean, 2 of their primary guards on this team.
Baisley out too.
And Darius Baisley. And something that was weird to me, but true, I guess, they kept Kendrick Williams at the deadline, although a lot of teams were interested in him. I mean, they wanted to keep him. And I mean, that just it's funny because, like, we've seen Kendrick Williams during his times in New Orleans where he was a good role player when he got the time, but he was like kind of positionless. They had him like starting at power forward. He's 6'5". That's obviously like not ideal. And that was during the whole Anthony Davis saga, but he's been good, man. 30 minutes last game, and I think that's a direct correlation to Dort, SGA, Baisley, because he can play any of those positions, and he does it for OKC. So I think Kendrick Williams, another value that kind of flies under the radar, and if he gets 30 minutes, I mean, we could be talking about a guy who gives us 30 fantasy points.
They've got 4 guys, the Thunder, to handle 2 positions. In full, by the way, with no starter. They've got Moses Brown, Isaiah Roby, Kendrick Williams, and that's pretty much it, right? What, Mike Muscala?
Muscala's out. They have Tony Bradley. So Tony Bradley will now he's active for tonight's game. So I guess that's something to consider. But one, they gave Moses Brown the contract. So we know Moses Brown, even though it wasn't like this lucrative deal, they signed him to a 4-year deal. And shout out Moses Brown for getting your bag. You deserve it.
Pokusevski.
Pokusevski's going to start and play 30 minutes, but he's been playing small forward. So I agree. I think there is time for Kendrick Williams from 2 through 4, and he could back up all of those positions and stay on the floor for 30 minutes, and it wouldn't shock me. So I like Kendrick Williams quite a bit. I guess it's interesting to see how this rotation plays out. Austin Rivers he was actually waived today, so that's cool. We don't have to ever worry about Austin Rivers there in OKC. But Tony Bradley being active intrigues me a little bit. Sure. And they played Josh Hall, Fancy, 20 minutes. And they said that he's going to be in the rotation. Whatever that means, sure. Like, good for you. Something to monitor when talking about OKC in general. But he played 20 minutes against Boston. Could have been due to the blowout, but it is something to monitor.
By the way, I'm saying this right now. I know it hasn't been confirmed. I don't think SGA is coming back this year. I mean, they benched Horford for the rest of the year. They have no reason to bring him back. I don't think he's coming back for the rest of the year. Just saying. By the way, one other pay-up that I want to talk about before we move on to the big men, DeMar DeRozan. I mean, come on. It's a perfect matchup for him. He's an attacker. I'm expecting more rebounding in this game. The Kings don't have anything in the post. No disrespect to Rashawn Holmes. They don't have anything in the post. And that's where DeMar DeRozan thrives, at the elbow and beyond, going inside. So I'm thinking you're going to get more points. You're going to get more boards from him. That's just my thought process, Grande. Yeah,
I mean, we haven't gotten the ceiling from DeRozan a little bit, but if there's ever a time to get the ceiling, it's against Sacramento. So I'm not going to poo-poo that at all. I like DeMar DeRozan quite a bit. I like him more on DraftKings, where he's under 8K. I think that price point stands out a little bit more. But I think if there was ever a time for a ceiling game, I mean, any of these Spurs are primed and ready against the Kings. So I'm with you there.
Let's move on to the power forwards. Talk about Giannis is on the slate, but also you've got big bad Zion Williamson in there. And a truck going right down the lane all night, bro. I mean, the way your eyes just lit up, that's where I'm guessing you're heading. But how don't you go after Zion against the Celtics, bro?
I mean, listen, I think there's obviously people were on the fence about Zion. I think there was the side of the fence that thought he would be exactly what he was drafted as. Number one, he'd be this good. And I think there were people who were saying he's too small. He's kind of bigger, as a power forward in terms of weight, and he's bound to get injured. Well, this guy is a freak of freaking nature, Fancy. This is not something that we've ever really seen in terms of size, speed, athleticism, ability. It's crazy, man. And he's putting it all together right now. I mean, he's gone for 38 and 39 actual. He took that Dallas game over in the second half the other day. And I know Luka and Porzingis weren't playing, but that doesn't matter. You could see it. He did it against Denver too in a loss. 39 actual. I'm having a hard time not playing Zion right now, regardless of price, because we're starting to get the upside. I mean, over the last 5 games, he's averaging 8 rebounds, which is up. He's averaging 4 assists, which is up. He's averaging over a block, which is up from all his seasonal averages. And that's not even talking about the 32 actual he's averaging over that span. So as much as I like Giannis.
Who are you playing between the two in their same matchup, Zion or Tatum?
It's tough because on one side, Zion, is playing so well, and Tatum has been underwhelming, but there's no Jaylen Brown, right? And the price point on Tatum is actually at a point where we're we really have to consider this. I'm going Zion, man. I think there's less, in Boston, there's still Kemba. We're going to factor in Evan Fournier. Robert Williams, the rebounding ball hawk, could really hurt Tatum on the glass. Honestly, he can, man. That guy is a freak of nature on the glass. So that could hurt Tatum. I don't really see anything impacting Zion. I think we're getting Zion the ball and move out of the way. He is the new Tucker. He is Tucker from Hey Arnold, and he should be. He's Tucker, and he never passes it to Hey Arnold because he doesn't need to. So I'm going to lean Zion over Tatum. He is my favorite, over 8K power forward tonight. And Giannis can win you a tournament at a drop of a hat. And I think the ownership will probably check in low because of matchup, because of recent form. He hasn't been great. But I'm not going to just exclude him. But I just like Zion a lot more. And it's really hard to ignore what he's done lately.
It is, but it's really hard to ignore Kristaps Porzingis going up against that underwhelming Thunder front court. Because if he's sub 8K on FanDuel, and I said this in the starting 5 video that I put up on the site earlier, is that I have the same thought process that I did when I said go after him versus Minnesota. And that was, if they were going to blow them out, it's going to be because they're riding the unicorn. And I think that they're going to once again ride the unicorn. Porzingis, man, I think he's going to be given a hefty return back tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bottom 10 defense against front courts in general, so it's a really tasty matchup. Porzingis definitely an elite tournament play because we've seen the ceiling that we hadn't been seeing it, and now we're getting it in full force. And I think Porzingis is one of those very streaky players. When he's really riding this high, he rides this high, and it's a profitable a profitable return. Between like just the tier at power forward on DraftKings, Zion, Tatum, Zinger, and Siakam, very hard to choose between that tier in general. They're all super elite. I can make a case for all four of them, all going for like 60 fantasy points tonight.
You're in a good spot, but let's say we want to go with one of those and then we want to pivot down. Are we at the safe zone for Dean Wade yet? We've got no Jared Allen. We've got Larry Nance Jr. questionable because he's sick. Have we reached the safe zone with him yet?
So it definitely got a little murky when Cleveland announced that Isaiah Hartenstein would be active, because I do think that he's going to get some run. We've seen Isaiah Hartenstein be pretty good in past spots when he's gotten run. But I do think now that Larry Nance is out, or potentially out, it puts Dean Wade back into play. I love the 31 minutes that Dean Wade saw against Sacramento, and I love the 28 fantasy points. He's a good shooter. He's a good rebounder, good passer. 3 of 4 with 2 steals. Only problem is, if Nance plays and Hartenstein plays, I think that presents a little bit of problem, and I think we go down and probably see like low to mid 20s as opposed to like that upper 29 to 31 minute mark that we'd see if Larry Nance was ruled out. So I think he's in play. I like Trevor Ariza quite a bit in that Knicks matchup. Listen, Spoelstra's going to play this guy 30 plus minutes, and he's shown it in 2 straight games. He's their starting power forward, whether you like it or not. And even with Jimmy Butler back, which I think was the kicker last game, 41 fantasy points with Jimmy Butler back. 14, 9, 5, 2 blocks, 2 steals. If that's not a Trevor Ariza line in a nutshell when like he's at his peak, then like I don't know what is. And he's 4,500. Let me just throw that cherry on top as well.
And he's been one of the best perimeter defenders of the last 15 years as well. So
he sure
that's
has.
Going to keep him in that rotation as well. Let's move on to the final position here, preview some centers here, because my guy from the starting 5 is not the highest priced guy, but Moses Brown, man.
Hell yeah.
He's just been a rebounding monster, bro. This guy, you want to talk about freak of nature on the glass? Robert Williams has done a great job. This guy who just got, like you said, just got his bag. I mean, come on, bro. Maxi Kleber going to stop him? No.
Yeah, this is one of those plays like, and it's 11-game slate, right? And like you talk about chalk on an 11-game slate, and you talk about high-owned players on an 11-game slate, and usually it's like you don't see it a lot. You see like depressed ownership and spread out because there's so many options. I mean, this is a great spot for Moses Brown. The price tag, whether it's 65, 68, it doesn't matter because we just saw he could go for 20-20. And the thing is, he didn't have any blocks in that game. We've seen Moses Brown with 5 block outings before. We've seen Moses Brown in 2 games prior with 2 and 3 blocks. Like, there's even more to be untapped, I think, with Moses Brown when he's consistently blocking shots because he's the total package in terms of rebounding and blocking shots. And he's not even, like, we're getting 21 points from a guy who's really not polished offensively. Like, I can't wait for that to develop because he's like, this guy is legit, man. I'm with you. I'm all aboard the Moses Brown train. John asked me this interesting question, and it's the 4 centers in his playbook. I would probably put Brown and Robert Williams at the top, and we could spend up and play Karl Anthony Towns if we'd like. That's fine. I think that's a contrarian spend up on tonight's slate. He's been a lot better. I'll give him credit for that. That's something that I was crapping on Towns for a little while because he wasn't getting us there.
Right.
But I think Williams and Brown are the 2 guys that stand out. Probably in order, Brown, Williams. Those are probably the 2 centers that stand out to me the most. They're the 2 guys that are projected to be the highest owned, and I think that they're the 2 guys that we should be strongly considering given what they've done when they've now been thrusted into all of these minutes.
Yeah, and I know that I've taken advantage a lot of the Sacramento matchup. Jakob Poeltl does not make me feel safe. When I have more motivation to look for $1,000 to pay for Moses Brown, I'm not touching Jakob Poeltl. It's a great matchup. But will he go for 5X, you think? Will he go for 6X? Does he have a huge ceiling? What do you think?
I mean, he could definitely exceed value at 5,700. He just went for 39 fantasy points essentially against the Bulls in a pretty similarly great matchup, right? And that was with Vucevic. So like, even a harder matchup because Vucevic and the Magic were top 10 defense against centers, at least statistically this year. And we've seen 40 out of Poeltl. What he provides, he's very good defensively in terms of defensive stats. He blocks a ton of shots. We've seen it lately, 3-3, 1-4, just his last 4 games. And he's a great rebounder. And when the scoring comes, he's an elite fantasy producer. So I agree in terms of like safety. I don't feel safe rostering anyone that Greg Popovich has on his roster. Let's just be flat out honest. I don't like Greg Popovich when it comes to DFS. I don't.
Even Derek White.
Safety, no. I don't. It's just it is a thing of mine that just I can't break free of because I've been popped too much. But I wouldn't say that Jakob Poeltl is safe, but I do think that he has upside here at 5,700 because it is the Sacramento matchup. There is still no Gorgie Jang who signed there. And, as they are giving Drew Eubanks some minutes, but Jakob Poeltl is still playing 30 a night when he stays out of foul trouble. I don't think Rashawn Holmes is going to put him in that foul trouble, so I definitely have him in my player pool. Still prefer Moses and Robert Williams, however.
Yes, talking about big men, a lot of nice value on the table. By the way, a couple injury notes. Goran Dragic is going to officially play, and Doug McDermott ruled out for the Pacers. So that's something to consider as well. You give James a follow on Twitter at @the_real_Grande. Give me a follow at Fensty Sports. Playbook is being updated. 11 game slate, Grande. Let's dominate, my man. Good luck.